We are live. Welcome to the Window to Our Minds, episode number 19. Already the pin ultimate episode. So this means next week it's the season finale. So this means starting like mid February and February, we will reveal the intro that Gray did. So how are you, Gray?
Oh, so amazing. Yeah, I went to come onto the podcast and all of a sudden my internet was not working. So that was really fun. Even now, it's still not working, which is great. It is plugged in through Ethernet, but it's saying that there's no signal, even though I'm on Wi Fi coming from the exact same box. So I got a feeling my brand new computer is failing. Also, one of the USB ports in the back, right next to the Ethernet port, also isn't working. So I don't know if that means like my motherboard is just failing or what the hell is going on. So, yeah, other than that, I was doing great. I was excited for today. I had just worked out, feeling pumped, and then that huge deflation of our modern problems with internet. But how you doing, man? I it seems like you're having a better day than me.
Yeah, I'm doing great. I have a great day. I cannot wait to start my new job next week. I feel good, man. Finally, I'm valued for what I'm worth. I always knew I was worth that, but like some people just don't
Oh
see it,
yeah,
you know? So yeah,
they're
I'm
wrong.
glad.
You are enough. Just saying.
And you know what's very funny? I feel good because I my diet, it didn't move at all during January, but now it does move. So I lost 5 pounds in the
Oh yeah,
last week and a half. So
dude, that's awesome.
this makes a total of 45 pounds since I first started my diet like five
That's
months ago.
no small feat. Like I don't know if you've ever, like used a 45-pound plate or whatever, but that's, constantly carrying one of those around. That would be like putting 45 pounds in your backpack and just all day. Dude, that's awesome. Like you have to be moving so much better. Even if the scale isn't always moving, you'd be surprised. Sometimes, your body is transforming other ways, if you will. One thing that really helped me was kind of taking measurements. You'd see that like your body composition kind of changes. Like, oh, okay, like, hey, my biceps are getting a little bigger or whatever, but the waist is getting smaller. I don't know. It was a huge, I don't know, boost in those times where the scale wasn't reflecting a change. So you might want to do that. But it's not all about the scale victories. But I'm glad for you, man. That is really awesome. I was inspired by you, and I'm getting on it myself. I've only been doing it about a week, but hell yeah.
Good luck, man. So that's funny because many years ago when I decided to work out and I was in shape, maybe like now it's oh my, it's already 2024. It's been 8 years that happened, but I did a diet back then and I did work out a lot and I did lose 40 pound fast, but
What
the
diet were
catch
you on?
is I was cutting sugar. Now it's
Mm,
much more heavier and bigger. What I'm doing right now,
yeah,
it's more
that's
drastic.
good.
So
Yeah.
what I was doing, I did cut like sugar. I cut like fast food. I cut like many things in the past, but I was still like eating normally. But I was just cutting like the bad. And now it's much more drastic because now I am older and I did put out more weight. So like many years ago when I did my diet, I went from 200 pounds to 160, and then I started working out and I was in shape. I was feeling great, and then things happen, life happens. That lasted for almost a year. Then I a lot of really bad stuff happened in my life. I won't get into too many detail, but I became a mess, and then I stopped the gym, I stopped the diet, and I gained back the weight. And I was feeling somewhat better after a long time because that was really hard times for me. I got the job at McGill. I was feeling better, but I didn't want to put the work to lose weight. So I was in a better space, but I wasn't quite there where I wanted to feel better about myself. I was feeling better, but not there yet, if you know what I mean. So half of it was working. Like I was happy, but I wasn't healthy. And now the big difference is now I want to be healthy. That's like progression. That's like growth. So my diet now is more strict because I did gain a lot more weight because in the last 2 year and a half life got rough again, and our podcast really helps, and having things to do also really helps, and our circle is just amazing. So guys are great, and I decided, you know what, i'm not
Oh, thank
feeling
you.
I'm not feeling healthy. I want to feel healthy, so I decided to do that diet. I do it since September, and it's really hard and harsh because it's a bigger diet what I am doing now. So I did cut sugar, I cut beers because I was drinking on the weekends. I wasn't really an alcoholic, but like because when I decided to cut the alcohol, that was easy. I do miss the taste. That was really good taste, and that was a good feeling. You're on the weekend, you have your good drink, you're like, oh, that's fun, that's great. But beer is not healthy. So back in September, I decided, you know what? I am happy, but I want more. I want to feel healthy. I want to be an example for my half brother and my half sister because they are always wondering why are you fat because they're like Asian, so they cannot really gain fat. That's like the cliche because my stepfather is Asian, so
Yeah, well, you know why
like
that's the case, though, right?
yeah, because they they
Yeah,
they they
it's
just
because, well, no,
they
it's because in countries like Japan, they have like a weight law where like every person who's like over a certain limit, they like add to like a certain tax thing on the yearly thing that they measure. So because of that, a lot of people like encourage, they always like, hey, you're getting a bit fat and stuff like that to try to encourage that not to happen. I mean, it doesn't count for people like sumo wrestlers, but still. So that's actually the reason why, because of that culture there in countries like Japan and such.
and it's also because of the parents, because again, that's my step brother and sister. We have the same mother, and I know the mother. So if I did gain weight, it's because I wasn't living with her, because if I stayed with her, I would be slim as well, because diet there is a thing even when you're slim. I won't say they are undernourished, but she makes sure they don't put out weight. So I know the woman as well behind that. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, you know what, they are wondering why I'm fat. I will show them that I can also be slim. And that's what I'm doing, and I feel healthier. And on top of like cutting sugar and beers, I also decided, you know what? This will be hard. This will be challenging, but this is one of the most effective way to do it. I decided to cut the number of meals. So basically, I have a breakfast, basically like um, a banana, an orange, or something really like lightweight, cereals, but not necessarily milk with it, just cereals. That's it. Um, Something really lightweight that has low calorie count. And then I do not eat until I'm about to go to sleep. So, like in my case, I'm around 4 or 5 a.m. It's the time I go to sleep usually. So around 11 p.m., 10 p.m., that's the time I usually eat because I have the time to digest before I go to sleep. So basically, I eat around uh 12 or 1 p.m., and I eat again at roughly 10, 11 p.m. So there's like a good like 10-hour gap between each times I eat. And that's really hard because I'm hungry. My body is like, yo, you gotta eat something. And I'm like, no, I don't. I need to lose that weight. And
Yeah, well, you
Yeah,
know what?
so
One thing you could do that could help is that don't eat any breakfast or lunch. Just only eat for dinner and eat something bigger than usual for dinner, but still not too many calories. Like one example I would give, which is what I've been doing, is something like a poke bowl, which has like a bunch of rice, like fish, like protein, like that, but also some vegetables and stuff like that. And that will definitely fill you up. And it's around like 1,000 calories. So it's still, you get like 2,500 a day. So you're still making progress, and especially if you work out a day. But it also definitely fills you up at dinner time, and you just skip breakfast and lunch and hold it off until then.
yeah, like so I don't count my calories, but I know I don't eat that much because again, even my meal I eat before like around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. It's not a big meal. So like my guess with the calories I usually eat in a day since I'm doing that diet is around maybe 14 or 1500 calories, but it wasn't always consistent because in the last 3 weeks I was in formation somewhere else and I could not keep up with that diet. I did keep up like in the weekends, but during the weekdays I could not keep it up because I was waking up early in the morning and I'm not a morning person, so that was really rough. But like if that formation I did at the other place wasn't there, I can bet I would have lost more weight because this really went in the way of my diet and it went in the way of the podcast as well. That really pissed me off so much. So like leaving that place was the right thing. Um, so yeah, I don't get like usually a normal person. I believe it's like 2,000 calories a day. An adult, I think that's what they should eat. So if you want to lose weight, you need to eat less than this. And I heard like 200 or 300 less calories in this. It can be enough, but me, yeah, again, I think I maybe eat 1500s. So it's really a
Yeah, I
500
think a
where I
thousand or
don't eat.
1,500 is the perfect amount, honestly. But
A thousand
I'm also
is
curious. Do you
the
believe in like the walk challenge that people do, where they have to take 10,000 steps a day, or do you believe that isn't efficient enough?
no, it's not efficient enough at all. And I will explain why.
Kind of depends where you start from, because if you're starting from zero, like that would be a huge improvement.
It would be an improvement, but I don't think it changed much because when I was at McGill, I was a foot patroller and I would walk a lot because by the last 6 month ish, when I decided to leave and stuff, during the last 6 months of my contract there, basically, I was doing 12-hour shift almost every day. So I was roughly doing around 60 hours a week. And I was walking a lot. And sometimes I had emergencies because I'm a security guard and because I had a grade of sergeant and stuff. I was most of the time the first one on site, and sometimes I would assist agents that are less experienced or qualified, and I would like take over their calls and stuff. So I was walking a lot. Like some people tell like um 30,000 footstep is a lot. I was most likely, and I don't exaggerate, I was most likely doing 40 to 45,000 um footsteps in a day, and that was on the quiet days.
Yeah,
When
well, I
it
don't
was
think anyone's saying like the diet advice is to cut back like 30,000 steps a day. I think it's more like for somebody who's not doing anything, like, hey, pay attention to how many steps you're getting. Like if you're getting under 10,000, you probably could be moving more. That would be one thing to start doing. But then
yeah,
you could kind of ratchet it up from there. Like, okay, start then walking with a backpack with some weight in it. Then start going, ramping it up each time. If you are doing like rucking, so like backpacking with weight, It actually burns like 3 times as much calories, so it would be kind of like walking 3 times as much, essentially. It's gonna be a lot more wear and tear on you, but, I don't know, like, I can't think of it was take, 10,000 take your steps down to 10,000. It'd be like kinda, "Hey, try and add an extra 10,000 to it," but you had, like, an extremely high baseline
Yeah,
anyway. Most
and
people have, like, office jobs where they're not walking.
yeah, and despite that, I was fat, man. I gained weight. Like
Yeah, well, I mean,
again,
you
um,
can't out exercise a bad
yeah,
diet, like,
yeah,
just no matter what, how long does it take you
yeah.
to, like, throw down, like, 2 peanut butter cups or something? Like, come on, to
That
work that off is gonna be extremely difficult.
that's what I was getting at is what you eat is what counts the most. Yes, it's important to walk and stuff, but what you eat, I think, is more important because if you eat healthy, I will tell you this, that may sound crazy, but if you eat healthy, I think you will be healthy. Will you be in shape and physically strong? Maybe not because this you need to work out. But if you eat healthy, you will be healthy. And some people they think that oh, I will eat crap and I will do sport and I will work out and I will sweat and stuff and that will be enough. I'm sorry, but no, it won't be enough. It's better than someone that does nothing. I will grant that. I will tell you this. It's better trying to do something than just sitting and expecting something to change. Do the action, take charge. That's what I think. But the foundation of being healthy is to eat healthy. That's really the idea. And because of the different work schedule I had in the last month, I wasn't able to keep up the workout schedule I started having in December, but yet I still lost a bit of weight. Not as much as past months, because past months I was doing both, and now I'm just doing the diet. But once my life kind of regulates itself back to what it used to be, I will work out again and cannot wait, man. I already feel better, and that was the purpose of my diet. And it's interesting because now we have an interesting topic, and that wasn't really planned, but that's amazing. Any thoughts on that, Gray or Cole?
Just yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that you're saying. Like, sadly, we've got a lot of food-like products that are available in the U.S. I don't know if they technically count as food. Like, there's no real nutrition in it. It's ultra processed, ultra palatable. But it's just sad because it's also ultra addictive. I know I've definitely got a problem with that. I don't know. I've found I feel the best when I stay away from anything processed and just kind of stick with like whole natural ingredients. And I don't know. I think I haven't looked at it as like fuel before, and really that's kind of how we should be looking at it. Yeah, I also kind of went through something like you're going through now. It seems like a big change a couple years ago. And hell yeah, man, it's really inspiring to see you going through it. It's definitely made me want to rein back in some of the weird shit that got back into my diet. But
And
yeah, man, I don't disagree with everything you're saying. I just think also some of us we don't have the luxury of having that fun job that you had where you got to actually like walk. Like I don't
yeah,
know. I think during my darkest days I would go like walk from my bed to my car, go from there to my work, sit at my desk, and then kind of do the reverse on the way home and get zero exercise. Sadly, I think that's where that whole like try to get 10,000 steps, like that type of person is who that's for.
yeah, and you mentioned like I was moving, and yes, that's why I like security, but when I was walking that much as a foot patroller, that was exhausting physically, especially when you do 60 hours a week. So, yes, the benefit is even if I was fat and not necessarily healthy, I had strong legs. I was like active. So, that's a good thing. But I wasn't necessarily healthy because I was fat. And after that job, I basically started working on a call center, and this is where I earned a lot of weight. I gained a lot of weight, and it got worse after because I got other jobs in security after that call center. But every other jobs I had after the foot patroller job I had less steps. I'd say now the usual steps I did in the last year or so would be around 25,000 to 30,000. So it's still a lot, but it's nowhere near as big as what I used to have with the foot patroller job. So I'm curious how it will look like with my next job. I will start next week. Since I'm supervisor, that will probably change a lot of things. It will be stressful for sure. So yeah, um, it's very interesting. I have seen it all, and to close off that tangent or that topic about weight loss, I feel like I've come from further than where I was because again, many years ago I was around 200 and I went to 240 after I stopped the diet and stuff. So I lost again. So I basically now the weight I started my previous diet many years ago, and I'm not done. I still have the conviction and the desire to lose more weight. So my weight loss will be bigger than the previous one, and I know I can do it because now I have the conviction that I want to be healthy. And that's what matters the most. And like many years ago, I wanted to be a cop. That's why I trained and lost weight and stuff. I realized I could not, at least not in Quebec, Canada, for two reasons. I suck at school, and our cops they need to be good at school. And the other reason is my eyes. I'm colorblind, and you cannot carry a firearm if you are colorblind. Uh, in a term of like public peace, like being a cop, no cop can be colorblind if they carry a firearm. So that's basically the rules and like the laws of the cops here.
I don't
So
think we have those. I don't know. There might be some sort of visual. uh, Hmm, that is interesting. I can understand the reason behind that, but huh, interesting. I just didn't foresee that as like a reason why you couldn't be. Damn.
yeah, so that was disappointing a lot because I did work out stuff, and in my life like a lot of things happen as well. So I kind of realized, oh damn, I will never be a cop. And again, I could have been a cop, but like a cop in the office or a cop like in the metro, because in the metro they don't carry firearms, they only have their sticks and their handcuffs. But I'm like, okay, so I will only do half of a police job. Amazing, very fun. And the same goes for like firefighter. They also cannot be colorblind. And the third one, I'm not quite sure, but I think it's the same thing. It's like paramedic, like um, the the people driving the ambulances. This is the right words. I've never really thought about it, but do you know what I mean by paramedics?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I do think this. I'm not as sure as firefighters and cops because haven't really talked to them because I was never really that interested into that. But I do think they have the same rule where they cannot be colorblind. So yeah, that's really sad. But I understand. Uh, the thought process behind it may be like, oh, if you're colorblind, maybe you will shoot the wrong person, or if you're colorblind, maybe you won't see the blood and stuff. But again, there's different levels of colorblindness, and mine is not the worst, but it's still there, so it's still a roadblock at the core. So the end result, because I could not be a cop, I decided to be a security guard. and I like the experience so far. I really liked most of the job and security I had. There are some that really missed the mark, but I feel like I'm doing what cops are doing on a smaller scale, and it's a bit different because cops they can change much more people than security guards. Like, we have similar tasks, but since I don't have a firearm, I will never save really someone life from another attacker. I may save someone life by doing CPR and by um making sure that person breathes until the paramedics arrives. This I can do, but I won't be the one that will like handcuff someone to make sure that someone won't shoot someone else. So that's more like the idea of I will never do as much as the cops, but I do similar tasks and I like it. So yeah, that's enough for the tangent. I'm wondering if any of you would like to add more to this. I
No, that's
guess
just
not.
awesome that
Um,
you want to like help people out. I guess I've just been an asshole and kind of just decided to worry about
yeah,
myself, not others.
It's not being an asshole. Like, most people are like that, and that's fine. There's place for everyone, and that's also why a few years ago I I did study special care counseling until I realized it wasn't meant for me. And I think Cole is having issues. I will try to bring him up. Can you bring him as co-host? I don't know if you can, because oh, okay, you
yeah.
can. Perfect,
Sorry,
perfect.
sorry about
My
that.
computer is shit. Yeah, what's up, Cole?
Yeah. Again, just internet. Fucking, it's just like there's such a delay. It's like you'll be moving your mouth, and then but I won't hear the words until like 4 seconds later. I'm like, okay, refreshing should fix it, and then it doesn't. I'm just like, I don't know what to do, but whatever. Yeah, I listened to your whole rant though, and yeah, I have nothing to say, but yeah, really enjoyed it.
Okay. So I think that closes off this part of the stream. So today we will do something special. Before we bring Cole's video, I will ask Gray, do you have a video you'd like us to cover?
No, I didn't. Been kind of battling internet instead.
That's fine. That's very understandable. At least you're there, and that what's matter. So, Cole, because I have a potato computer, I will ask you if you could screen share the video you sent me. If you cannot, I will just do some shenanigans and kind of bring it back, but that may delay a bit, like a few seconds. So, Cole, are you able to screen share the video you sent me?
Yeah. No, I can do so. I'm just saying there was a delay on my side, so if mine is also lagging, then my bad. And also if you ask me to like pause at certain points or whatnot, but then I like don't until
Uh,
later on, then my bad. But yeah, I can screen share that perfectly
I will
fine.
actually I will actually try something else. I will be right back. Just entertain them for a few seconds.
Oh, okay. Just entertain now.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So words are
Sure.
being spoken. Um, yeah. So yeah, it's kind of frustrating. I don't know what happened with my Ethernet port, but I'm working on two possible solutions. But yeah, it really sucks because with my Wi-Fi, I'm just having internet issues. So it kind of blows. I just bought a new computer to be able to do stuff, and apparently it's not wanting to do that. That's always a disappointment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's been the issue with mine. I mean, maybe mine's just old. I don't know, but yeah, maybe I just have it on for too long, and that's why it lags so much. I don't know, but yeah, um, I think it has something to do with my port, though. My port is just shit, and I don't know how to fix it. But hopefully that changes in the future when I move out of this shithole. But we'll see.
Well, hopefully it's just
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, Multi's back.
Yeah, I'm back. So I will screen share once my potato computer wants me to.
Okay.
It won't take too long.
it's fine if like the video itself like lags a bit like that's perfectly fine. It's more so just like the audio.
It should work. The audio is fine.
Yeah.
It's really like my mouse is doing really weird stuff. Okay, that's the video.
Yeah, so the
And
video, right. So this was a video I sent to Malty a little while ago. It was like relevant to something else he talked about before. It was like a hive mind thing, that topic, but it was also more also relevant to like just like toxic fan bases or like how the internet works and when you become like a creator. And I thought it was quite an interesting video, so I decided to send it to him and say like if this ever fits in one of your things and you could react to it. I think it's quite an interesting video that I think everybody should see at least like once in their life. Now there are some things, like a few things in it that, because of when it was made, which was like almost 10 years ago, there are some things in it that are like a bit outdated, that aren't like true anymore. And like one thing I disagree with, which is like one person he credited as being like a positive influence, but outside of that, and just like the main which was like I forgot her fucking name, but it was just like some like a D-Lore might have talked about her before, but it's like one of the people fucking like responsible for that Sweet Baby Inks shit. So it's like but whatever. The main point of the video though, and just like what it's about, still holds true though. And if there are some things that are outdated or not as true anymore, then point them out. But yeah, it's still an interesting video. So
thank you a lot, Cole. And I feel kind of guilty because I completely forgot about it. And I like when people bring videos. So I'm curious.
No, that's perfectly fine. It's all cool.
It's amazing you brought one, right? Now we will finally cover it like 2 months after we were supposed to do it.
Just remember, like, going into it, what it's about. This is basically like a game developer and basically talking about his experience when he blew up in popularity. And this is basically like, just kind of put yourself in his shoes as like a content creator now, and that's like the video basically in a nutshell.
Perfect. Let's do this. And
This is Phil Fish.
And I will add this on top. Is this video is coming from you, so it will feel very different from the usual videos because I gravitate towards so much like similar videos from each other, and it's hilarious because when we had Charles on and I made him pick and choose the video, he was like looking at the playlist, he was like cancer, disease, and all of that. And I'm like, bruh, that's hilarious. I like your take. And now we got something different, and that's amazing. Anyhow, let's do this.
This is Phil Fish. Phil is, or was, a game designer. He worked at Ubisoft, entered the indie scene through TIG Source, founded Kokoromi, co-starred in the documentary Indie Game the Movie, and released a game called Fez.
So I will ask you, Cole, have you seen the movie he's talking about?
Yes, I have. It's pretty interesting about, again, indie games and everything. And, they featured like 3 different creators in their games, and all of them kind of blew up in popularity. I believe another one of them was Meat Boy. Super Meat Boy. I believe that was one of them as well. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was a pretty good documentary. It was Super Meat Boy. Braid was another one of them. If you ever heard of that game, I believe.
I didn't hear about it.
But yeah. I'll actually just show this quickly. This was the it was basically this game, if you ever saw it maybe before. But yeah, boy, and then it was this Fez by Phil Fish. So those were the 3 games that featured, and all of them kind of blew up in popularity, which was just like a wild coincidence. They just picked like 3 at random, so it was kind of interesting. But yeah, it was a good documentary.
Perfect. That's good to know. I'm wondering if any of you would like to add more or not. I guess
No, I'm
not.
thinking we keep going.
Maybe you heard of it. And everybody hates him. That's an exaggeration. If you don't hate Phil Fish, you probably either know somebody who does, or you have never heard of him. He's been called a racist, a liar, arrogant, overrated, and generally, quote, an asshole.
I'm wondering if any of you knows Phil Fish.
Not really before this video, no. It was kind of before when I mean, I did use the internet at this time, but in the gaming scene, like this far depth with like even indie games and stuff like that, it was before I got more into it. So no.
Okay.
Yeah, I just kind of heard of him, but don't know a ton.
So we basically barely know the guy, so we don't know if we can defend him. Okay, that's interesting. Let's play.
End quote. This video is not about defending Phil Fish, or about setting him on fire. This video isn't even about Phil Fish. Not really. This video is about everyone in the world who isn't Phil Fish. We, and by we I mean those who would eventually be Phil's public, first met Phil on the forums at TigSource, sort of the indie game CBGBs. He was a talented artist that delivered very constructive, if blunt, critiques on the art subforums. He was one of dozens of strong personalities. He had a tendency to fly off the handle, though rarely
How do you qualify a strong personalities, starting with Cole?
I mean, it's just anything that, like, you know, there are a lot of people who just like don't really share their thoughts as much, even though they might want to, just to like not, just to stay out of like any drama, not be too out there with it or too vocal, too loud, and then other people just, whether it's like good or bad in your opinion, yeah, or just like don't care, just like say anything they think, you know, with no filter.
I like that.
Which you can see in the comment there.
What about you, Dre? Do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
I have no idea how he's using that to, you know, classify this guy. So I don't know. It's generally not like a term that I usually use to describe someone. So I don't know. I'm hoping he somehow describes that or explains how he's using it. But I don't know. I don't want to mind read him.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we can play now.
Provoked, even if it didn't seemingly take much provocation. You could most easily set him off by talking about who was and wasn't really indie. The point being, he wasn't a shit talker. He was a guy who called out shit talkers, though where you place that dividing line likely depends on your opinion of Phil Fish. Early in development, he started a devlog for Fez that quickly became the most popular devlog in TigSource history. The game around that time blew the fuck up on Twitter, and an early demo won an Excellence in Visual Art Award at the Independent Games Festival. Phil was becoming, quite rapidly, a big deal. He was the subject of dozens of articles and interviews and quickly received funding from the Canadian government, based solely on his first commercial release, which was, at that time, little more than a prototype. This rankled many developers who had been releasing finished products for years in total obscurity. It is worth noting that Fez's popularity didn't really mean people thought it was better than other games in development. Fez's selling points were Phil's art, guided by his incredibly demanding standards, and its 2D 3D mechanic, which was near impossible to describe but could be instantly understood in motion. The game blew up on Twitter because it was perfectly suited to Twitter. Everything you needed to know about it could be understood in 4 seconds of video or even an animated GIF. It was a game that compressed well, and the more compressed information is, the further it can travel on the web. This took no particular genius on.
I'm wondering, did guys have played that said game he's talking about?
I have, yeah. It's pretty great, but yeah.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess a lot of people just like think. Yeah, I guess a lot of people just think like it wasn't. You know, I guess there's disgruntled people think like it wasn't anything too special in comparison to the scene. Like sort of like, I guess about, you know, a good example might be like, you know, like we just, you know, you guys just reviewed Red Rooms the other day, and yeah, you thought it was like, I guess, you know, like a masterpiece or something, like 10 out of 10, like, but there might be some people in Quebec, Canada, who like been making films for a little while that, you know, are just like, that's nothing special compared to like what I was making, you know, like 10 years ago and such. Like, you know,
Bruh. No, 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 no. I gotta say, cinemas here, movies from here, they suck, bro. It's sad to say, but I am not a proud Quebecer that will stand by our movies. And I liked
Yeah. Well, I mean, they
how,
make a good one. It's just, you have limitations because of your, the rules in your country. That's all. But yeah, but
yeah,
I think that's just like similar to like a lot of things. So it's just like people will be making films or games or whatnot for a while, or watching over people making that for a while, and then one will blow up in popularity, and you as like a hardcore will be like, I mean, it isn't anything too special in comparison to like the shit from like one of my favorite game developers or filmmakers that I've been seeing like 10 years prior. So it's like, why the fuck is this guy, blowing up in popularity and getting this funding? Like, fuck him. And then start calling him like overrated or egotistical and everything. And that's kind of like how it starts with all these things, which is kind of how it started with Phil Fisher.
like, to since you mentioned Red Rooms, like, that's the only trailer I could recall that was made here. I don't remember any recent trailer because here in Quebec, most of our movies are drama and comedy. That's all our country has to offer. And it's sad. Like, there's no action
Hmm.
flick. And I
I mean, I've
understand, like,
seen
the
gutter
limitation.
throwers that were made in Quebec. Like, I don't know.
There's also documentaries. There's a lot of them because it's cheaper. But yeah, I will blame parts of it on the limitation, but the other part is what most of the people are watching. Like, when you go in theaters, like for movies, the audience is very different when it's a movie from Quebec than when it's a movie like from the USA or other countries. It's like it's a different audience. That's the other thing. Like, most of the time it's old people and women. That may sound weird, but that's the core audience of like the movies that are made here in Quebec. And I know that because I went a lot in cinemas and stuff. It's rare. Like, sometimes you will see a girl bringing like her boyfriend, but the boyfriend will never be like the one that will say, "Oh, let's go watch that new movie." It's usually like couples or like women's group of women's and stuff. So it's also the target audience is very different. That's why we have like drama and comedy, because these are the most popular ones for that audience they seek for, and they are also the cheapest to make. And this is why I think here our market kind of sucks. So when we get a great thriller, it's like, oh wow, that's like that unique movie. It's like, oh, that thing that stands out in the bunch of same movies. And it's funny because when we go in theater and stuff, and they have like these advertisements about a movie, it's always the same bullet point. Like, every director, they have always the same things to say. And you know what was interesting? Uh, when Red Rooms was in theater, I had seen a preview with like the director from that, and he actually had a different speech and point of view, and he didn't bring the kind of cliche talk from most of the other directors. So maybe that's why his movie stands out. It's because the person that made it do stand out in the bunch. So yeah, that will kind of close the Red Room talk for now. I'm wondering if any of you have questions based on what I've said. Am I clear? Am I crazy?
Clearly
No, no,
crazy.
I don't understand, but yeah.
So, okay, let's play this once my computer wants me to.
on Phil's part. He simply lucked into an idea that elegantly fit the mold of how games became popular in 2008, and used that system superlatively. Other developers' games could be better, deeper, more cerebral, but not half as mimetic. But the way Phil acted in the face of this popularity seemed smug and self-satisfied, as if Phil felt it were owed to him. His acceptance speech for the art award at the IGF had no trace of humility or even surprise. In interviews,
Can we be owed of success when we get success?
Yeah, I
It
don't
was
know.
his attitude fine.
People
That's
react.
more
People
like,
react to things different ways. You know.
can you be proud without being judged?
God. Yeah. Like, oh, people will judge like the smallest things. It's like, I remember, at the Oscars, like there's been definitely a few people where they judge just because they like scripted their speech in advance in case they won, and because it wasn't just like raw and just like unorganized or unplanned and just sort of like fucking Jennifer Lawrence's speech, where it's just like whatever, and then people just label that as like pretentious and like ungenuine. It's just like, whatever the word is. And I don't know, people react, do things different ways. I mean, I don't think like we can put ourselves in their shoes. Like, how, like, is there really a correct way to react to something like an award, you won, or like how, being genuine with it. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it's just a stupid award at the end of the day.
I like your point of view. Do you want to add more to this, Gray? Can we be
No,
proud?
I think that's well said. Again, I think it would kind of depend on definitions, and I don't know. The guy's not here to ask him exactly what he means by that, but I don't know. I guess it kind of depends on what you mean by proud, because it depending on the definition, it could be implied in there.
Okay. Let's play the rest.
interviews, he often ranted about what was wrong with other games, much as he had on TigSource, with the tacit implication that Fez would be superior. And when folks shared their unvarnished, profanity-laden opinions with him on the internet, he responded right back in kind, as he had ever done. But before, if a complete stranger randomly told him to go fuck himself, no one cried foul if he told them to go fuck themselves.
When I see that, I feel like it's so childish. Like, why are you so childish that you feel like you need to insult back? It's like,
yeah, but at the end of the day, though, it's like, if somebody like just a random stranger on the internet, like, says like, you're a fucking idiot. It's like, it's like whether you do or not, it's like somebody will then, say, yeah, fuck you too, like back, just like in real life, if somebody said that to you in your face. And it's like, and as this, I think, this video is getting to, if you play it more, is that, now that he's popular now, it's not just like that common interaction where it's like if some random dipshit says fuck you for no reason, then you say, yeah, fuck you too. Then it will be hold as like some accountability thing because he blew up in popularity now instead of just being a random, as this video will show.
so Gray, what do you think of that kind of behavior? Is it exemplary or is it childish?
I think that's a false dichotomy. I think it depends on what it is and who's saying it, but I think you have the right to respond. But yeah, I don't see it as like a binary that either you're exemplary or you're childish. I think it goes on a spectrum.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I just want you to like rewind 10 seconds. Just press like the J key. Sorry, J key. If you
J key.
Yeah,
J
sorry,
key.
the J key. Yeah, just like rewind like 10 seconds with that, and just like more so, yeah, like that. Yeah. So and then you can play it just because I want you to hear like the full thing and like the opinion of the video here. You can press play now.
Opinions with him on the internet, he responded right back in kind, as he had ever done. But before, if a complete stranger randomly told him to go fuck himself, no one cried foul if he told them to go fuck themselves right back. This was just two strangers flaming each other on the internet, and if anyone was in the wrong, it was the one who started it. But now Phil wasn't insulting a stranger, he was insulting the audience. This was interfacing with the public. The dynamic between these two people is viewed completely differently as soon as one of them becomes famous. To talk about Phil Fish is to talk about fame. More and more people began to speak toxically about Phil and
He actually makes a good point. And
Yeah.
this
Like this is what happens once you become famous. Like imagine if you became famous one day, Multi, and then you just had that common interaction that you always do. Then it's like to them, they think you're like insulting just the entire public or like some stupid shit like that, even though it's just some like random troll on the internet that you're just saying, yeah, fuck you too.
And this also provides some kind of vision on how drama is created and framed. Like all the man, I feel like I bring them up too much, but like the anti-woke crowd, when someone they hate says something, they use that as a weapon, they weaponize it. It's just like it's exactly that. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
let's use that.
That's exactly what they do. They'll insult like a celebrity, but then if they respond back, then they'll play the victim.
Oh, they responded. Any thoughts on that, Gray?
No, I think you guys pretty much covered it.
Okay.
To Phil. Resentment began with developers, but soon expanded either by spreading out from TIG source or because Phil was just good at making enemies. The complaint that Phil had never released a game, lobbed at him most every time his name was mentioned on the internet, masked a deeper complaint. Hundreds of developers on TIG source had never finished a game, and no one complained about that. But none of them were famous. The deeper complaint wasn't that Phil was more famous than them, but that he was more famous than he deserved. At this point, Phil was basically...
Who are we to judge if someone deserves fame or not?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's just like people will, it's like almost out of jealousy, almost. But yeah, I mean, it's just like fame almost like comes up just like randomly. Nobody asks for it, but they'll still hold it against the specific person, Like the only time where it's like, warranted is like if somebody was clearly like a corporate plant who like, and this was like planned. Like good examples would be like what's that guy's name? Yeah, Marshmello, that fucking DJ. He was clearly like a corporate plant, and a lot of people who like wear the fucking thing and go to like live concerts on even the original person. It's all different people doing it. That or like fucking Ice Spice is clearly a corporate plant and who planned this all out. But outside of like those people, like yeah, it's like he just randomly got famous one day, and it's like he's not doing anything different. He's just like doing what he's always done. Just doing whatever. It's like imagine if like you're just imagine your daily routine every day, Multi, like what you do, but then you randomly just became famous one day out of nowhere for whatever reason, like this podcast or whatever. But you just continue with your daily routine. But then people, then because you're famous now, start to judge like, well, why you're bothering with that shit? Why aren't you, doing other shit like, like supporting, real world issues or, just changing it up. Like what, and why the fuck are you famous if you're just doing this shit? And it's just, and then you're just sitting there like, what the fuck's going on? And it's like, I didn't ask for this. And it's like, this is the same thing.
I just wanted to make content.
Yeah.
Gray, any
Exactly.
thoughts on that?
And this video like perfectly just sums up a content creator.
Yeah, I just I think it is weird that nobody's getting flamed or whatever for going after him, but if he responds, like he is just so horrible, but only because he's famous now, and of course he doesn't deserve it. I don't know, it's kind of a cycle that it seems like a lot of people go through. I don't know if it's jealousy or just it feels good to tear down somebody above you. I'm not sure what the reason
it's just how
behind
the
it is.
internet works, and especially Twitter. Yeah. It's like people who have miserable lives or are jealous of other people's lives. You just want to bring down others. That's Twitter in a nutshell, and kind of like the internet.
I think you are right on both statements, Gray. I think it's a mix of both, really. That's all I think and feel. So yeah, I guess we can play now.
Basically Nickelback. Now, people don't hate Nickelback because they think the music is bad. People think loads of music is bad and don't give it any further thought. People hate Nickelback because the music is bad and popular. But it's more complicated than that. I
can freaking relate to this. and I will bring an example of a rapper I truly despise and hate, and he is like misogynistic. Like he really like promotes selling women and like selling guns and shooting people,
Yeah,
and
well,
he
one
is
that I hate
really
is like Drake. He makes like rap for like car music people, and I don't get why it's so popular. And also, he probably just has a bunch of ghostwriters doing it, but it's popular for whatever reason, which kind of just makes me go, "What the fuck?" But at the end of the day, I mean, it's just like it randomly blew up because of that. He didn't ask for it, so
and furthermore, I truly hate the guy because he's also a liar, and because he promotes like misinformation and like is it's a facade. And on top of that, man, that guy shot people. Like that guy is like he was banned from Canada, bro. Like he was. It's funny how he did so many crimes and he almost got kicked out of Canada many times. And each time they were like, "Oh, we will send you back where you're from," and each time it was like, "Oh yeah, I'm scared to go there because of the music I'm doing," and then once he got banned because he shot someone, he goes there. So for many years he's like, I don't want to go there, and then he goes there. It's like, bro, what WTF? Like what? And on top of that, like his music is always the same thing. Like the only difference is like the melody behind it, but it's always the same lyric, always the same crappy
right.
message he brings. It's like is shallow and people are buying into it. And like one of my coworker I used to have was like praising him. It was like, oh, that's my idol, I want to be like him. And I told him, bruh, you fantasize over like a person that really exploit like all of the worst thing you can exploit. It's disgusting, man.
Yeah, like it's all just like fake at the end of the day, especially their gimmick. But at the end of the day, though, like what this is asking him, which you'll see once you play the video more, it's just like it's like just for that rapper as an example or musician, it's like yeah, you hate them, but also it. There are many artists just like that are just like that horrible of people, and that music you think is lame, but they aren't popular, so you don't care as much. So it's like, yeah, whatever. They're like irrelevant. But because that one just blew up in popularity randomly, it's like that makes you hate them even more. Like for example, like The Last of Us Part Two. Like a lot of people think it's a bad game. I mean, I don't think it's as bad as people say, but it definitely isn't also as good as people say. Like I don't agree with either side. It's just like it isn't anything special, but it isn't like terrible or like the worst thing ever. But because people don't think it's like anything amazing, but yet it got some praise from like journalists and everybody in like the industry, and then people who think it's like some sort of masterpiece. That's what made the hate become even higher because of that. Like if it didn't get that like reception from certain people and like awards and stuff, then the hate wouldn't be as strong as it was. And that's like what this is summing up. That's Nickelback in a nutshell. Like if Nickelback wasn't as popular as they were, if they were just like fake feeling, just like bland country music, then they wouldn't be as hated. But because there's many like them, but because they are, that's the difference, as you'll see in the video.
And on top of that, to add more hate toward that rapper I truly despise, like in one of his song, and that's the favorite song of that coworker I used to have, he lied. Like the rapper basically said, "Oh, I'm the first Quebecer that did shows in Europe," but that's a damn lie. Like bunch of people that were there before him, and they are like even in terms of popularity, they did tour in Europe before he was even a thing. So he spreads lies like that, and I'm like, he diminishes so much, and he thinks so much about himself, and it's all a facade because he's a truly awful person. In fact, like he shot people, he exploit people. Anyhow, enough of that rant. I truly hate that rapper. F him. So Gray. Anything you'd like to add more?
I'm cool with that rapper. We're good.
Because someone at a studio heard Nickelback and thought, I can sell that. It's because the music was so aggressively overplayed on the radio and aggressively advertised as if a PR department were trying to sculpt a mediocre band into a sensation, regardless of worthiness. It's because, despite all the hate, Nickelback's fame proved that this was actually working, that millions were buying into it. It's because Nickelback represented the apotheosis of an existing trend of shallow, whiny hard rock, which they...
I think a lot of music in modern day is very shallow, and this makes me sad. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, but this
Agree.
is like kind of like what it's getting at though, which is that not as many people actually hate like Nickelband, the band itself, more so like, well, the video will explain, so I won't spoil it, but yeah.
But there's also been shallow music since music has begun. I mean, there's some real like bubblegum pop stuff that has no real thought or anything put behind it. Not a ton of talent. I don't know. Like Nickelback at least figured out like a formula. I don't know. I can understand why people like it. It's not my cup of tea, but you know, they do that one thing really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's play.
made even more popular and spawned legions of shallow, whiny imitators to continue the trend. It's because every step of this process seemed to have been taken solely for the benefit of the people getting rich off the record sales. I hate Nickelback, as a sentence, voices a complex opinion on cultural trends in popular music and aligns the speaker with those who hate not just Nickelback, but all that Nickelback represents. They resent Nickelback the concept. Nickelback the actual band is of secondary importance. The band's crime, other than the writing of the actual songs, is their complicity in this system. They signed the record deal. They deemed themselves worthy and deserving of this studio-constructed fame. In a phrase, they bought into it. The ire felt for Nickelback the band is only somewhat harsher than the ire felt for the fans that buy the records. They are just the first and last links in a chain of politics, studio politics, radio politics, and record politics that are seemingly ruining music. This entire chain comprises Nickelback the concept. And when people say, I hate Nickelback, this is the Nickelback they're referring to. And when someone tweets, I hate Nickelback at Nickelback, they aren't really talking to the band. They're talking publicly to culture about what Nickelback represents.
So this reflects very well in other stuff. Like, I can relate a lot to this. As a security guard, a lot of people hate me because of my uniform, even if I have never met these people.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the same goes for cops. Like, so many hatred is aimed at cops, and it's so unfair. Like, yes, there are some cops that are really stupid, but why not cops? Trust me, crime would rises. Like, people, if nobody is there to enforce what's going on, like to enforce the rules, man, people will break the rules. People will just go nuts. They're like, oh, there's no consequence to what I'm doing. So I can relate that. And how many times I called the cops because of my jobs, because it was beyond me and I could not do anything, and how many times they really helped me was great. It's very accurate. So when I hear someone trashing the cops, I almost feel insulted, even if I'm not a cop. I'm like, you don't realize what they are doing. So when I see movement like defund the police, I really think it's freaking stupid. And that's funny because eventually, once I will get back at writing, I plan on writing a fiction on a world that's basically like ours, but there's a big change. Is like the movement defund the police worked, and how trash the world becomes because of that. That's like one of the premise of that book I plan on making eventually. But yeah, I'm wondering if any of you would like to add more to this. I guess not.
I agree with your sentiments. Yeah, I think it's just easy to criticize, but yeah, what can you do?
Yeah.
The actual tweet to the actual band is just a shorthand. Saying I hate Phil Fish became the same sort of shorthand. Phil was friends with a few dozen other indie famous developers, so he came to represent circle jerking, the idea that you got indie famous by being friends with the indie famous. Phil had government funding and impressive pixel art skills, so he came to represent the idea that money or polish or retro aesthetics, rather than gameplay, were what guaranteed press attention. So much of the conversation was about Phil, not just about Fez, that he came to represent shameless self-promotion, egomania, fame breeding fame, overemphasis on personality over product, or whatever else. Phil was not just getting undeserved attention, he was the
So, personality over product. This reminds me again. um, I will bring the initiative and the other crowd again. I feel like they have they are an idea. They're not really unique people anymore. They're more like they represent a movement more than people, and it's hard to explain, but like yeah, what it means is, oh yeah, the game doesn't matter, it's the person, but who's making it, you know? I'm lost in my train of thoughts. I'm wondering if any of you would like to add more to this, because now I'm fried. My brain doesn't work anymore on that one.
No, I mean, I think I get where you're going on it. I kind of agree, but yeah, I mean, like he just kind of becomes, shorthand for it. It is kind of sad, like, people do. I'm not sure how hard Phil Fish went into this and like just decided that that's the persona he's going to adopt, or if this is just kind of still what he was doing before. But I definitely know the phenomenon that you're talking about. I've definitely seen it. It's kind of that audience capture as part of it too. Like he is famous, so is he going to lose the fame by doing something different? Is he going to risk it? I don't know. It does seem like you do kind of like fall into that character that you've kind of created. It's definitely something that everyone would deal with, but I'm not completely convinced if he fell into that character or if he's just being the same person he always was, because they did say that he was, talking shit back to everybody always. So I don't know.
It's like people did bought ISOM not because ISOM is a good product, but because Eric July is in charge and he has a following. That's
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's a little different though, because I do think it's a little different, but yeah, like it's just like, whether you're a fan of, like, for example, Phil Fish's work or not, it's like the reason there's been such a hate for him in this video that's shown so far is just because he blew up in popularity. If he didn't, then they wouldn't hate on him so much. But it's like didn't ask for it though.
That's a fair point. That's a good point.
The embodiment of undeserved attention. It's worth noting that these popular beliefs about indie politics are not necessarily any of them true, but they are firmly believed. Phil Fish the concept and Phil Fish the human being orbited around each other for the 4+ years of Fez's development, and a small cottage industry grew up among reporters and bloggers of announcing whenever the two were in alignment. Indie Game the Movie was filmed while Phil was legally divorcing his business partner, whom the film anonymized, and the end credits said he'd asked not to appear in the film. Shortly after release, Phil's business partner said he didn't ask not to be in the film, he was not asked to be in the film, and that he'd actually been given no opportunity to rebut Phil's account of events with his own account. This quickly became subject or citation of several articles and quickly flourished as a topic on blogs, forums, and social media. At an Indie Game the Movie panel at GDC 2012, when a Japanese man in the audience asked developers what they think of current Japanese games, Phil took the mic and said, bluntly, "They suck." Within
I feel like he did that on purpose to create drama and to gaslight, to like get attention.
Well, it couldn't be to inspire the Japanese game developers to make better games. Like maybe he's an inspirational fella and he has a different way of getting people inspired.
Yeah, well, what I will say is if you watch the video further along, you will understand the meaning of this in the media.
Okay.
Yeah, but just remember this point, like them claiming that, like, yeah, some Japanese guy, said what he thinks of Japanese, game developers, and him saying they suck. Just remember that, but keep watching the video.
Okay.
I will say.
Okay. Fair enough.
In a day, Phil Fish says Japanese games suck was headline news on Eurogamer, IGN, and Kotaku, among others, and the comments filled up with people calling Phil a racist. And when, later that week, Fez won the Seamus McNally Grand Prize at the Independent Games Festival, Phil took his victory lap by telling a stranger on Twitter to choke on his dick. The stranger had...
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, well, because as this video is showing, says like the stranger got into it with him, and he basically told him a bunch of insults, and when he won the award, he's just like, yeah, fuck you, suck a dick. And again, this is what people do commonly on the internet, though. Like if some random person was just shit talking to them for no reason, then they'll do this back to them like it. But yeah, now that he's famous, though, they'll see it as like them being fucking arrogant and whatnot, and being complete fucking asshole. But yeah.
Okay. Gray, do you want to add more to this?
Again, he might just he might have a point. I'm not going to say that he's wrong for telling this person to do that. I don't know what the other guy instigated him with. I would be interested to see what preceded it. I've definitely said things that if you looked at the one tweet or one like response out of context, yeah, I would seem unhinged. I'm not sure. I would just like to know the context.
Okay.
Per usual, insulted Phil for no reason. This also became news. 2 years later, this is still cited in articles about Phil. Now, game-related news, editorials, reviews, and criticism all fall under the same vague banner of games journalism, but none of these things are news in any traditional sense. They have no material repercussions on gaming as a whole, on how games are made and distributed, or even the development of Fez. This is merely gossip, unless Phil is functioning as a symbol, which is precisely how he was being used.
So, the anti-woke crowd movement.
Yeah, well, just any crowd in general. It's just like they'll think of someone this way, but it's like it's not entirely true. And you put them in their shoes, then you'll understand. But they want to like use the hate as like like this movement thing.
The movement is important.
Yeah, I mean I don't know
because talking about
nothing else. Keep playing. Sorry.
About Phil is talking about fame. It is a known secret that Phil's former business partner is musician Jason DeGroot. For all his statements that the filmmakers were liars and that he'd never gotten to tell his story, DeGroot never told his story. The only specific he ever shared was about that line in the end credits, which no one disputed. The line was immediately removed from all digital copies of the film and was not included on the DVD. As for why he quit the company, or why he took so long to sign the papers despite the very real damage it could do to the game, many choose to believe DeGroot's entirely hypothetical explanation, usually assuming that it centers on Phil being such an asshole. At GDC, following the
So, you judge a book by its cover?
Yeah, they all just believed him, even though there's no proof of anything, just because they wanted to hate on Phil. And as you'll see, like in the next few seconds here with this next point, you'll see also the one comment about Japanese developers right here. It's talking about if you rewind like 5 seconds.
Very real damage it could do to the game, many choose to believe DeGroot's entirely hypothetical explanation, usually assuming that it centers on Phil being such an asshole. At GDC, following the "they suck" comment, Phil Fish and John Blow had a back-and-forth conversation about overarching trends in both Japanese and American game design traditions, offering criticism of the American trends as well as exceptions to the Japanese trends. The moment where Phil wrote off Japan entirely simply didn't happen.
What? That's interesting. So people are just lying.
Yeah, that's the media. Yeah, and as you'll see in the next part, it explains what he actually said.
Interesting.
Something Phil did say, however, was, "You guys need to get with the times." You guys, directed at the Japanese man in the audience, essentially casting him, intentionally or otherwise, as the representative for his entire culture. Problematic generalizations like this happen all too often in games culture. It's a topic that deserves to be discussed, that sorely needs to be discussed.
It's like it doesn't just apply to gaming; it also applies to movies and other industries as well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Would have been entirely justified to use Phil Fish to have a conversation about tokenism and cultural insensitivity. But instead, people used tokenism and cultural insensitivity to talk about Phil Fish. The useful discussion, the one that is larger than Phil Fish, didn't happen. And when that discussion does happen elsewhere, not nearly as many people show up to the conversation. In fact, many who do show up insist it's not a problem. People cared about racism only in as much as it let them hate Phil Fish. Finally, consider the choke on my dick tweet. Then consider this one from the following year. Neither is any more newsworthy than the other. The headline for either could be Phil Fish has strong opinion. But one is news, and one is not. Anita Sarkeesian is a feminist critic who talks about the portrayal of women in games and cybermobs. And because of this, she has accepted that she will get constant rape and death threats for the rest of her career. And though she was a major figure at the time, Phil praising and defending Anita Sarkeesian didn't become news. Nothing positive Phil ever says becomes news. Because the headline isn't really Phil Fish has strong opinion. Phil Fish is a symbol of everything that is supposedly wrong with indie games. He's newsworthy when he acts like a symbol. Anything that doesn't fit the narrative is ignored on blogs, forums, and social media, and news sites cherry-pick the moments when Phil Fish, the human being, looks from the right vantage point.
Something both sides of the spectrum like to do so much about the other side.
Yeah, they'll ignore the other things, like when he, this is like honestly like kind of like Neil Druckmann recently, even though I wasn't a big fan of The Last of Us Part 2, and even though he can be kind of an arrogant asshole sometimes, he can also be just a good person sometimes and be genuine and thoughtful to other people. But when that happens, they ignore that. But when he's being an arrogant asshole, sometimes they only focus on that. And that's the same with just everybody in like the film industry, on YouTube with YouTubers, the game industry, just anything.
Yeah. Do you want to add more, Agree?
Yeah, I think that really covers it. And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I really like to wait until, you have the context, because it's so easy to, just take somebody's word for it. But how often are we, just told incorrect information? It seems like way too often. But, we're all quick to react. Interesting phenomenon.
Yeah.
Like Phil Fish, the concept. The real headline is Preconceptions about Phil Fish Confirmed. Confirming preconceptions is what makes it news. Which is not to say that Phil was necessarily blameless in any of these situations, but that given many angles to view them, people consistently choose the harshest ones. This is a deliberate choice, made to preserve the idea that Phil is just an asshole. The philosophy here, which is troubling, is that there are right ways and wrong ways to be famous on the internet. And while there may not be any consensus on what the right ways are, there is sometimes consensus on who is doing it wrong. As with most philosophies, this can't really be proven or disproven. There's no sense trying to argue someone out of the opinion that Phil is an asshole for not acting the way famous people are supposed to act, or, crucially, for not acting the way we would act in his place. This is a popular argument because it's an argument you can't lose. No one can empirically prove whether Phil is or isn't an asshole. What gets elided from this argument is the assumption that famous assholes, people who don't act the way famous people are supposed to act, deserve to be punished. In 2013, Phil quit the games industry, canceling Fez 2 1 month after it was announced. The final culmination of Phil's punishment came in the form of a blowout with Marcus Beer, the annoyed gamer. Guesting on an episode of Invisible Walls, Marcus Beer called out Phil, calling him an arsehole, wanker, and pisspot for refusing to comment on Microsoft's new self-publishing policy when asked by journalists. Marcus's argument was this, that because Phil was famous, journalists wanted his opinion, and that Phil should give it freely.
It's funny how when you're not popular, nobody cares about you, and they're like, "Oh, you don't give a crap."
And this shit is like no different than like, God, there was some blow up that happened recently with like some person called Mama Max, and he was like, "Hey, since Moist Critical is famous, he should talk about predators on the internet. All right, he has an obligation to do so because he's popular." It's like, what the fuck? Who said?
What's the point of that? It's like asking a lawyer.
It's like he got famous off of just saying his random opinions about things on the internet, and now he's like obligated to do things. And it's like, sure, it's like it's an important issue, but it's like also you could say the same thing about you. It's like the things you're doing. It's like there are more important issues too in other parts of the world, like fucking wars going on. It's like, but you're not doing that. It's like you could cherry pick the same things with everybody, and this is what this guy's doing. It's like, you have an obligation, since you just randomly, blew up in popularity and you're a game developer, you have an obligation to call out certain things. It's like, they fucking don't. It's like they can do whatever they want.
It's like a lawyer. He is like, "Oh yeah, you did defend doctors. So the doctor, what should he do?"
God, it's like if you blew up in popularity multi off of YouTube, and then there's some like other random YouTuber, like let's just say like God, what's a popular YouTuber like Mr. Beast, for example, who then like got exposed for being like a predator. Then it's like people will be like, hey, since you're a popular YouTuber, Multi, if you don't say anything about the situation with Mr. Beast right now, then fuck you. It's like, what?
Why?
And it's just
Why
like
my brother?
I'm just a movie YouTuber. It's like, what the fuck?
Facts.
Phil should be grateful they were asking for it, that many would envy his status in the industry, that he owed journalists for all the attention they'd given him, that he had no right to refuse the press now after having shamelessly promoted himself online and in Indie Game the Movie, and that the press should give less attention to his next game if he wouldn't drive on the two-way street. Phil was being famous wrong. Now, one incentive for people like Marcus Beer and the staff of Kotaku and Eurogamer to say contentious things about Phil Fish is because contentious things about Phil Fish are guaranteed thousands of page views. People are invested in hating Phil. The announcement of Fez...
I think people are just invested in hating others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they love drama.
What do you think of that, Dre?
It's true. People are drama farmers. They've got to harvest the drama crops. Yeah, it's a lot of drama. People like it. It gets clicks.
Hell yeah.
Fez 2's cancellation on his company website presently has almost 2,000 comments, most of them insults, long consecutive unbroken strings of insults, people saying good riddance, suggesting he fuck off, kill himself, or, of course, choke on their dicks. At this point, Phil is practically as famous for being hated as he is for making Fez. The hatred of Phil leaves no room for reconsideration. People have to commit to it. You can't publicly, repeatedly encourage someone to commit suicide and later reevaluate, think maybe he's not an asshole, without then thinking, well, if he's not, I certainly have been. It becomes psychologically necessary to hate Phil, and permanently. Here, finally, is my point. Let's do a thought experiment. Imagine you're at some Manhattan cocktail party, and in conversation with a stranger you've only just met, you say, "Can you believe this bullshit Phil Fish said on Twitter?" Do you think the more plausible response is A, "God, I know, what an asshole," or B, "I don't really care"? The correct answer is C. Who the hell is Phil Fish? Phil is not famous the way we are used to thinking about celebrities. Despite being in a movie, a documentary about video games, the average random passerby has no idea who he is. Nor do they know John Blow, and while they've probably heard of Minecraft, they probably don't know who Notch is. Same for Cliff Bleszinski, same for Ken Levine. The world at large does not know or care who makes video games. Fez has shipped 1 million units, so in a random sampling of 7,000 strangers, it would have been played by one of them. Phil is subculturally important, not culturally important. He's only famous to us. And Phil is famous because a lot of us talk about him. Algorithmically, this is how search engines work. The more people talk about him, the higher he appears in searches. Similarly, the more we talk about Phil, the more articles get written about him because they are guaranteed high readership and high ad revenue.
And this is why a lot of people focus on the same shit. When you're in one sphere, the other sphere, whether the sphere you're in, they will all talk about the same stuff because they want to prop up the popularity of what they're talking about. I think. I guess. Am I wrong? Am I crazy?
No, that's
A little crazy. Not wrong, though.
People discussing how much they hate Phil makes Phil more famous. We're used to thinking about fame as something granted to a person by people with media access. The reason people hate Nickelback is because of that record contract, that Faustian bargain. They bought into it. They had to be discovered. Someone had to connect them with video directors, record producers, stylists, advertisers. This is not what fame looks like on the internet. There, fame is not something you ask for. Fame is not something you buy into. Fame happens to you. Phil doesn't have an agent. He doesn't have ad executives. He doesn't tour the country on press junkets, and he doesn't have a PR department, obviously. He talked on social media. He did interviews when invited to do them. He was invited into a documentary. People read these things as shameless self-promotion or a desperate need for attention, or both, but that's projection. Nobody knows Phil's reasons for doing them but Phil and the people who know him personally. Phil never asked to be famous. We made him famous. Maybe in part because we found him entertaining, maybe in part because we found him irritating, largely because many of us were once sincerely excited about his game. But he became a big deal because we kept talking about him. On the internet, celebrities are famous only to the people who talk about them, and they're only famous because we talk about them. And then we hate them for being too famous and make them more famous by talking about how much we hate them.
I can relate so much, and I I will bring my if we can call it that way, my rapper career there. One of the videos I'm the most ashamed of is the most popular one, and I'm kind of sad because I feel like I'm forced to kind of keep it up, even if I should unlist this shit or completely delete it.
Why? Just because of the views? You feel like you're obligated?
It's it was back in the day when I was bad. So this is a bad song, and what happened is someone fell on it, and he made a video with it and other rappers. Now, granted, the guy said, "Oh, he has charisma and his lyrics are cool, but this is a trash song," and I cannot tell otherwise because I agree. It wasn't a good song. It took me a long time to be good, but because that guy kind of promoted my song among others, this video blew up. And if you search my artist name, that's always the first name results, and it doesn't represent what I do now or what I did even a year after that video. But I always have that kind of like um, weird feeling where I cannot really unlist it or delete it because I feel like I will vanish, and I'm not doing it for fame or anything, but like the fact that one of my video has been seen by many is one thing, right? Um, so yeah, I totally feel it. Like if that guy didn't make that video, um, my video would have never been like the top result when you search my name. And yeah, that's very accurate. Anyhow, I'm wondering if any of you would like to add more. I guess not.
Could there ever be anything more self-defeating than this? If Nickelback decided tomorrow that they didn't want to be famous anymore, they would have to give up the tours, the roadies, the record labels, the billboards. Things most of us don't have. They would have to settle for normal life. The only way out for Phil was to give up what most of us consider normal life, openly being ourselves on the internet, because his normal life is what made him famous. Anything Phil says in public is newsworthy. He had to quit or privatize all social media. He had to stop speaking to his friends in public. If he goes to GDC or PAX or Indiecade, even as an attendee, there will be photos. My impression of Phil Fish is that he was young and hungry and talented. He seemed to perversely enjoy when people started talking about him. That cockiness usually comes with an arrogant assurance that you deserve to be spoken of, and a gnawing fear that you actually don't. For me, the most telling scene of Indie Game the Movie is when Phil realized that an article about Fez he thought had been very popular had actually gone largely ignored. And, looking destroyed, he asked, "Why do I care so much?" I read him as a guy who took a weird joy in fucking with people's expectations of him, but knew that he actually cared what people thought of him, cared about being accepted, and also wondered if that wasn't very bad for him. What is this impression of Phil worth? Nothing. Everything I know about Phil comes indirectly from the internet. I have access to the same set of information as everyone else, and we all draw wildly different conclusions. We project different things on Phil, which says more about us than it does about him. I will not say that Phil isn't an asshole. I will only say that none of us know him. And why this matters to you is because if you're watching this, you are on the internet. On the internet, there is no hard line between those who do and don't have access to the media, because the internet is media access. There is a wide, fuzzy gradient between the famous and the unfamous. The person whose cat video has 2,000 views is slightly more famous than the person whose video has 15. People can be WordPress famous, Tumblr famous, Facebook famous. People can dedicate 20 years to their career and suddenly get very famous very fast in their 40s thanks to the internet. Or they can find themselves famous without trying to be. You may wake up and find something you tweeted last night has 45,000 retweets, and you will find yourself suddenly held to different standards. You won't necessarily know why this thing was the thing that made you a big deal. You won't necessarily know how long you'll be a big deal. But suddenly the people who follow you aren't just people anymore. They're an audience. And they want you to be something, and they don't necessarily agree on what that something is. How would you want them to judge you?
This was really interesting. Oh, actually, yes, 2 final points. Any comments on what we heard since the last
Yeah,
pause?
this is just like the internet, and in a nutshell, just like with everything, and also with like YouTubers, like if you ever, or just like anything else, like if you ever just randomly become famous, like you'll be, and this is like what the videos basically summing up, like you'll be in the shoes that like Phil Fish was in, and how he got like this random hate for just doing what he always did and what like every kind of regular person did. But because now they randomly became famous, like it was held in different standards, and it's something that, and this is kind of like why I think this is like important to watch at least once in your life, if you're trying to like do something on the internet, so you kind of understand.
Yeah. Do you want to add something to this, Gray?
No, I think that's a really good point. I'm kind of interested to find out his final 2 points, but yeah, this has been a really interesting video.
2 final points about Phil Fish. 1. Phil is an exception. He is white, male, middle class, and presumed to be both straight and cisgender. If you lack one or more of these traits, expect this kind of backlash sooner. For people who are any kind of social minority, they can expect Phil Fish levels of hatred, or worse, for any perceived offense. Sometimes the perceived offense is having any opinion at all.
I actually agree, but that's for maybe different reason now, because now we got the
But you have
anti-woke
to understand,
crowd.
like this was like posted like back in like 2014 or 2015, so this was like a lot more violent to like any fucking person like trans or anyone like that, like at the time, especially that, like for example, like fucking 2010, like if you're just like someone who's like black in a Call of Duty lobby, then expect to be called the N-word.
Yeah. And now I think it's mainly because of the anti-woke crowd. They
Yeah.
just latch on minorities and they want to trash them because they feel threatened.
Yeah, but also just to add another point of what the other outdated thing was. I forgot what her name exactly is, but that Anissa person that was brought up that he supported, and that the
Anita
person
Sarkeesian.
in the video, yeah, the video, the guy in the making the video talked about. I will just say, yeah, she did kind of deserve. I mean, not like that hate, like saying get fucking raped and stuff like that, but she was like one of just those feminists who actually like didn't play any games or cared about it. It's like she just did it for profit and attention. Just like if there's any game, like fucking just any game with like a female that has like fucking that's in like a like a revealing outfit or something, but that she knows nothing about, just like any like Mortal Kombat character, for example, then she'll criticize as like some sort of like over sexualized thing, and just like other stuff without actually playing the games or understanding anything about them. So it's like, yeah, she was like one of those people, and during like that whole era. So it's like, yeah, I don't fully agree. I mean, I don't think she deserved that hate, and that also was still, it's still irrelevant to the point, which was that, yeah, anytime he says something positive, then it's unrecognized, though only when he says something that people hate, or and all the other stuff. But yeah, just to bring that up though with that person.
Yeah,
And
I completely agree with you. And sadly, I think like Phil Fish, like she brought a lot of this on herself. I guess if that's what the guy was meaning by strong personality, she also definitely had one of those where she was saying like it's our job to call everything sexist, racist, and to call it out every single thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think you're going to make giant statements like that and say how, problematic everything is without getting a few criticisms. But like Cole was saying, I don't know if the extent of the criticism she got or Phil got was quite warranted. But I can understand, that if that's what he means by strong personalities, yeah, I think they both have it. They're both very combative, and they do bring a certain amount of this on themselves. Doesn't mean that they deserve it, though.
Yeah.
yeah, fair point. So the other thing I wanted to add on top of that is now I feel like white, male, middle class, and then presumed to be both straight and cisgender. Today it doesn't apply anymore. Like, I
Yeah,
think,
it doesn't apply as much anymore. Yeah,
yeah,
again, this was like 2014, so
yeah. Okay.
2. Prior to the release of Fez, Phil released Glee and Super Hypercube through Kokoromi. Fez was his third indie game.
yeah, and that's last point is the funniest thing of them all. He got the hate from the very beginning because people are like, "This is his first game. Why is he deserving all this?" It was his third because people don't do
Really?
research. Yep. So yeah, but
That's
anyway,
sad.
so yeah, this whole video, like again, even if you don't care about the game industry, even if you don't know who Phil Fish is, this video just represents just on like online culture and also just like sums up like with content creators, anyone else, like what happens when you become famous. And this is why like this video has become like pretty famous as like a YouTuber's favorite video because it sums up just the adventure and just like the journey once if you ever like get that spike in popularity, like what you can expect.
Yeah, I fully agree. So, um, that's it. That was a video. I enjoyed it. Thank you a lot, Cole, for recommending this. And I really
Yeah.
feel guilty I didn't
Oh
take
no,
a look earlier.
it's all good. I'm glad you watched it now though. Yeah, that's cool.
That's amazing, man. Thank you a lot. That brought something interesting and different. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, that was the penultimate episode for this season. Next week is the season finale. We close off season 1, and I do have a few questions for DC and Green next week because this will be the season finale, and that may direct season 2 in another way or not. Maybe we will keep going in the same way. Anyhow, Gray, what do you have going on your end of the internet?
Yeah. So shortly after this, I should be talking to Charles Willis Scredia. We have he reacted to a bunch of people kind of saying that Chappelle is no longer funny, and since he's a professional comedian, I thought it would be kind of fun. I was supposed to be there to go over it with him. Fortunately, I missed out with that, but I have some questions, so it's going to be kind of a follow up discussion to that. So, kind of a discussion on people claiming Chappelle is no longer funny. And then tomorrow, I'm supposed to have a debate on AI art on my channel after Thinkers. But yeah, tomorrow's Thursday, so also check out That Darn Kidda's channel for Thinkers every Thursday. It's quite fun. Sometimes we have people like Multi on.
Yeah, uh, good show. Highly recommend. So yeah, on my end, not much is going on. Working on my Naruto tier list video. Eventually, it will come out. Eventually. Outside of that, I stream gaming when I get the chance and the time. Um, so yeah, that was it for today. That was very fun. I'm glad we could make it work. That was very complicated. We almost canceled. Um,
Yeah, sorry
Almost.
for the computer troubles. It seems like it has to happen like right as you're about to start. Like for some reason, it's not like it's going to be messed up all day. Just literally like 20 minutes before, I was like, "Oh, okay. Hey, I've got no internet. What's going on?" So I apologize. I wasn't meaning to tell you at the last second, but yeah, good times. I'm kind of surprised my Wi-Fi held up this whole time. So little
And this
victories.
and this is why it's shorter than usual because I'm scared that it may like cut off and I may end up being alone. And I had the blast because Cole was able to make it. Thank you, Cole, a lot for your time. You're amazing, man. I cannot wait to talk Red Rooms with you tomorrow. Um,
yeah, I agree.
that will be fun. Maybe we will have Alex again on. And I don't know if you have seen the part after you left, but he brought some very interesting points. And we had an amazing talk about Red Rooms already. So I'm looking forward to have a different talk tomorrow with you.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm excited for next week, Lucifer season 4, man. I'm almost done watching season 4. That's
yeah,
a good
I
show.
finished too, and yeah, it was better than season 3 for me, but yeah, it still wasn't on the peak of like season 1 and 2. I will say that.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed. Anyhow, this is it for today. Thank you for everyone to just drop by, and we will see each other next week for the season finale.